You have a number of questions. Let's dig into them. The longer I work on a project, the more subjective it becomes, and I start to overanalyze everything. How do you know when a mix is truly finished and you can let it go without over optimizing it to death? That's tricky. A good way of knowing when a mix is finished is that you reach the deadline set to you by a record label or the band or something else, or your own schedule, and you have to finish it, and that kind of makes you just have to make those decisions. And like writing a song or mixing and mastering, all of it is just comes down to being a series of decisions. And I suppose it's something that comes with experience, that you just, as you go along, you get more and more confident with your ability and with your ability to make the right decisions. And it could be like from what kind of reverb to choose for your mix, and how to where to put things in the stereo field and the levels of everything, and obviously you can go crazy with details, which I think is a good thing, because good mixes often have a lot of details, like beyond just getting everything right in terms of like the stereo image and the EQ and the general levels of things, and the tones and everything, and the vibe of it. When you have that down, then you can go into detail with just pulling up a lead instrument for just a little part. All these kind of micro adjustments you can do to make a mix really hit hard. That's a cool thing to go deep on. But at some point you're also gonna have to accept the fact that you're always gonna be able to find that extra thing you could do, and just put a stop to it and print the final thing. And it's the same thing with writing a song, I suppose, that at some point it just needs to be finished, so that you can start playing it live or record it. So yeah, but it's tricky, but it's something that just comes with experience. And I mean, who cares if not everything is perfect? I mean, if one song didn't turn out perfect, or an album mix didn't turn out perfect, you're gonna write another song, and you're gonna mix another album, and you get a new shot at it, and hopefully over time you will have progress. All right, next question. As someone who only knows the basics, I often struggle with the actual application of music theory. If we travel back to when you were first unlocking theory for yourself, how did you tackle it to make it usable for your songwriting? I suppose what you need to do is you need to start using the knowledge that you have, because if it's only like things that you have like read from a book, modal interchange chords, or secondary dominance, or synthetic scales, or whatever it may be. It can be things that sound cool on paper, but you need to dig into them to understand what they are. And by that I mean you need to play them. You need to explore songs that are using these things. And an even better way is to write music. Write songs that are using these harmonic devices, or incorporate things into your playing, into your improvisation, and so on. That's the way to do it. And I remember being a young man, learning about theory, learning about scales and guitar and everything. And for a few years, like in my late teens, it was actually taking away a little bit from the enjoyment of listening to music, because I was always analyzing things. So listening to music sort of became more of like analyzing than actually enjoying, which was weird. But then as I came to a point where I started understanding more, and I could separate these things a little bit and enjoy things. And even though I know a fair bit of music theory, and I'm always learning more, even though I know a fair bit of it, I don't mind listening to music that is like simple. Simple, maybe that has a bad connotation to it, but you get what I mean, like things that are just not as involved. Yeah, and there's something to be said about learning theory and like unlocking the mysteries, and sort of getting into the mechanics of music. That it's like a really really good place is for creativity is when you are finding yourself like on the edge of what you know, and these things that you don't really know yet, that you are internalizing and getting a better grasp on. That's a good place to be, because if you know some basic chords, you already have a vocabulary of things that you know, and then you add something else that you incorporate, that can be like super exciting, because suddenly you have a new sound that you can put together with these sounds that you already know, and that can really spark some cool things. And yeah, and as you go into more advanced things, yeah, it at some point it might feel like you're running out of new territory to look into, but trust me, you won't ever run out of things to explore, because it's so limitless. But in a way, it gets a little bit more difficult as you grow older and learn more. But still, but it's also helpful, because at any time I always also have all these um, like concepts and devices and things at my disposal. So when I'm writing a song and there's a specific vibe or feeling or sound that I'm going for, I have a library of things that I can pick from, that I have been using for such a long time. So that's it. All right, next one. Since most people love shredding, there are plenty of resources for technical exercises. However, one topic that often gets overlooked is rhythm. How do you wrap your head around such complex rhythmic patterns? And what advice would you give to someone looking to break out of the standard 4/4, 3/4, or 6/8 grid? Um, I don't know. Learn from the best. Uh, Learn from artists that are doing things that excite you rhythmically. I played with the band Meshuggah for a few years, and I got to learn a lot of their material, which was really a bit of an exercise. Even though it was for sure not my first encounter with tricky rhythmical things, because I've always been interested in polyrhythms, polymeter, those kinds of things. I used to have a Frank Zappa tribute band, so we played a lot of Frank Zappa songs, and he's like he was a big lover of polyrhythms, so like 5/4 quintuplets, septuplets, 11 tuplets, and all these crazy things, nested tuplets. So I learned a lot from playing his music, and Yeah, and just being aware of polymeter. Polymeter is what Meshuggah does. That they are like cycling a odd meter over mostly 4/4, I suppose. So they can put like an 11/16 rhythmic cycle on top of 4/4, and they just cycle it, and it's like the two different meters clash against each other. So yeah, learn from what people are doing, and then start making up some of your own rhythms, and they can get progressively more complex and alien. All right, so final question here. A personal question that I don't have to answer. Let's see what this is all about. We all talk about creativity, but rarely about the silence. Have you ever reached a point where you felt like you've already said everything you had to say musically? How do you rediscover your why when the spark just isn't there for months or even years? Um, I don't think I've ever felt like a big lack of spark. Not over a longer period of time. Um, it's more like I'm a what's the word for it? Like I'm pretty dependent on the situation for creativity. I need to know, like, to be able to write a song, for example. I can't write a song. I can't have like 20 minutes to be creative. I need like a full day where I'm gonna be uninterrupted, undisturbed, nothing else that I need to do, so I can just fully immerse myself into the creative process. And then from there on, I just trust that something will happen. And sometimes it doesn't, but I try to make something happen. And creativity can be so many things. It can be that you are just picking up your guitar and you start making something happen, and and music just comes out effortlessly, which is really cool when ideas just pour out. I think that's a very nice feeling. But sometimes they don't, and you don't know why. And in those cases, I try to spark ideas. I might just pull up a drum groove from one of the like superior drummer libraries of drum MIDI. I put something on, and then I start riffing and jamming. And if I don't have any good ideas, I'll settle for a bad idea, and I record it, and I'm stuck there with a bad idea. But I try to let that be like the key to another idea. Like, I have a bad idea, maybe I can think of what could come after this idea. And what has happened then is that I have settled on a tempo and a key and a vibe that can go into the next thing, which might then be super exciting, because now I don't have to worry about what key it's gonna be in, or what the tempo, or yeah, and of those things. It's like I have limited myself to this one area, which can like trigger some good things, and then when I'm writing a song, I just try to like open the creative faucet, and let things pour out without too much judgment, and just have ideas of melodies and riffs and drum grooves, and then I can start putting them together. And the things that you recorded that or came up with that are bad, maybe that first idea that you didn't really care for, but it was just a start, maybe you can toss that away, or maybe you will end up re-evaluating it and deciding that it wasn't actually that bad. It was just your own assessment of the situation, that you weren't ready to hear that idea yet. So yeah, so there's that. I think that answers your questions, I hope. Thank you. All right. On the topic of the Endurneck and my custom version of the Endurneck, the questions I received here was, how does your Endurneck feel compared to the standard Endurneck? What is your experience with the Endurneck on 6, 7, and 8 string guitars? And how and why did you adapt it to your personal preferences for your signature models? So I come from playing Ibanez guitars. I was an Ibanez artist for many years before I joined Strandberg. And Ibanez was kind of my first love, so to speak, especially those old Steve Vai models, the gems and the universes. And they had like slightly thinner necks. One of my gems actually have an even thinner. It's like wafer thin, and I just loved playing those necks. And I could never feel at home with like a Les Paul or something that has more of a girthy neck. That was never my thing. In part also because of my playing style, because it's kind of at times physically demanding for your hands. And I used to have some issues with my arms and my and injuries and stuff like that. So I loved thin necks. So when I started playing Strandberg, when I first tried an Endurneck, there were things about it that I was very compelling to me. A lot of it made sense. It was just a little bit too thick for me, and also like the angles between the surfaces were a little bit too rough for me, because I change position a lot in the way that I go from playing one finger per fret nicely together and suddenly doing something stretchy, which means that when I will go into the stretchy thing, my thumb moves over here, and when I'm playing something tighter, my thumb can be over here. So I'm moving like this. So I'm actually crossing over the entire back of the neck a lot when I'm playing. So I kind of felt my thumb was inhibited a little bit by that. So yes, I suggested to Ola Strandberg that we try making a custom version of the Endurneck, and we did a bunch of different iterations of it, and now I feel like we have probably arrived at the best version. So yeah, and like for the regular Endurnecks, I dig the 7-string version the best. Maybe because I play mostly 7-string. The 6-string is also cool. The 8-string felt a little bit too bulky for my playing style, with all the stretchy stuff and for my hands. It's also a longer scale guitar, which increases the difficulty. It's good for certain aspects of tone and intonation, but so when I got the gig with Meshuggah, we made a custom version of the 8-string Endurneck as well, which is also incredibly smooth. Now, unfortunately, right now that guitar is not in production, since I don't play 8-string anymore. But that was a beautiful neck. So yeah, that's it. And I'm always intrigued to know about other players' experience with Endurneck, which version you like, and how you see the differences between the 6, 7, and 8 string versions. I would love to at some point see a 6-string version of both my signature guitar and my custom version of the Endurneck. I think that would be sick. But we'll see about that in the future. Thanks for asking this question, Julian. See you around. How has your perception of intonation, temperament changed over the years? Do true temperament frets fine-tune your ears the way a fretless instrument does? Does it make standard fretted guitars sound strangely out of tune after a while? Or is the transition not drastic at all? Are we so used to standard guitar temperament that it will always sound fine and familiar even though it could be more in tune? I think that temperament and intonation is something that I've grown more aware of as my musical journey has progressed. But I remember being a young one and struggling with tuning the guitar, because you tune the guitar and you play those open chords. You play a G, it sounds great, and you play a D and maybe an A, and then you play a C and everything just falls apart. And it's always either the G or the B string that is not there. And actually, if you look at the true temperament guitar, you see that the biggest curve thing in the true temperament frets is on the first fret, in between the G and the B strings. So something is definitely happening there. So yeah, I don't know that true temperament frets fine-tune your ears, but for me, coming from the background of playing straight fretted guitars, and starting playing true temperament guitars like 13 years ago, it was just such a godsend for me when I could start playing true temperament frets, especially in recording situations where things are, I mean, when you record something, it's gonna last for eternity. It's gonna be the ultimate version of your song, and you just want for things to sound as good as possible. Whereas when you're in a venue, in a live venue, and there's like all the room sound and everything, and there's the energy on stage and the energy in the audience, you can get away with less perfect intonation, just as the actual performances maybe don't have to be as perfect as they are in the studio. So, but then when I have, I sort of got so used to having the much better intonation with true temperament that when I go back to and play regular straight fretted guitars, it can be annoying. Now, as you might know, true temperament it's amazing, but it's not exactly for free. It's an up cost for a guitar, and it can be pretty substantial. So the latest version of my signature guitar has straight frets, and it intonates as well as any other straight fretted guitar. It's also multi-scale, which kind of helps intonation a little bit. But again, it's not a true temperament guitar, so it's just going to be that good old struggle. And I think a lot of us, when we play standard straight fretted guitars, we have learned to adjust. There's going to be chord voicings that we don't play, and there's going to be chords that we don't play high up on the neck. And true temperament opens up the world for us, because there's much more things that we can do and still sound good. So yeah. So I think that answers most of your questions, I hope. Thanks for posting your question, Julian. All right, I'm going to practice your name, and I'll see you. Cheers. Well, if it isn't young Master Isaac Stolzer Gary, it's very good to see you here, bro. I was suspecting, no, I was counting on you to show up here with some well thought out questions, and you did not disappoint. So, your first question about improvisation, what I'm thinking about when I'm playing. Some people seem to be very hyper analytical, thinking about everything they do, and others just seem to go into a wordless flow state, as you call it. And I suppose that most of us improvisers, we find ourselves somewhere along that spectrum. And I think the golden place to be is in that wordless flow state where you don't have to think about things. And that's what we are practicing for, right? To be able to do that. And because as soon as you have to think about things, it's not going to be the same. You're going to lose a little bit of the flow. And for me, it's kind of a little bit like when I'm speaking English. I think I can communicate fairly well these days, but still, it's not my, mother tongue. So sometimes that happens. I just freeze up, trying to find the next thing to say, and that kind of like when you don't have access to the information without thinking, that's gonna hinder you. So that said, it can still sound amazing, so there's always that. But I find myself when I'm in that flow state that I can start hearing musical ideas coming out that I'm not even sure where they're coming from. It almost feels like I'm observing myself play something, and sometimes I'm surprising myself. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. So it depends a lot on, how familiar I am with the chord progression, with the track at hand, and if it's something that's easy, if you have like diatonic harmony, like E minor harmony, it's not gonna take that much effort to figure out what I'm doing, because I can just hear it and realize, oh, I'm in E minor. Like that. So, but if it's a more involved thing with chords that are all over the place, there's a track by Alan Holsworth called Atavachron that I love playing over. I have posted a few improvisations like on my Instagram and my YouTube, and I play it at clinics and so on. And it has just a ton of chords, some of which are related in kind of a weird way. And when I created the backing track I'm playing over many years ago today, I had to read the chord chart while I was playing and trying to figure out what to do and just keep up with the quick succession of chords. And as time passes and I've been playing over it and I've been thinking of it, these days it's kind of it's more like intuition. I've played it so many times that I know where to go, and I can pretty much do it without repeating too much of ideas that I've used before. And I can even enter that wordless flow state with it, even though the chords are actually pretty tricky. So yeah. And there's also something about there's never gonna be a place where you are just fully learned, what do you call it, where you know everything about every chord and every chord progression. There's always gonna be new things that you can explore and find out. But it's cool when you start to understand music and harmony and scales so much, so you don't have to think too much about like what scale to use and how to get there, and how to not play things you don't want to play. When you're starting to get to the point where you can be free to explore musical ideas, and you can play, if you come up with a musical phrase, if I'm in a tavakron, if I'm doing like, it's kind of a repeating thing that you can take throughout the chords, and if you don't have to struggle with actually nailing the chords and the related scales, that's a really cool place to start actually working on playing musical ideas instead of just surviving the chords. So yeah. I'm not sure I've answered everything. So yeah, about like considering one's next move. It's like when you're improvising, it's like you have to operate on a bunch of different levels. I mean, you have to be aware of the chord progression, and you need to like be able to look a little bit into the future on what's coming next, so that you play a line where you move your hand so that you're setting yourself up for success when moving from one chord to another chord. But also it's difficult if you need to think about it too much, especially if you have things like if you're going to try to, you have a long lick that you want to get into a solo. That can be difficult because then you're limiting yourself. All right, 7 minutes spent on the first question. Sorry about that. So the second and last question. I would love to hear a bit more about your process for learning the Meshuggah material, since it's become a bit known that you did it despite not being given tabs. How did you break things down? What was your mindset going into each practice session? And were there any practice hacks you found to be the most effective? If I'm learning new difficult material, my strategy is always to practice right before I go to bed, so I can sleep on it and wake up like 10 times more familiar with the material in the morning. Yeah, I don't really have a hack like that I practice before bed. But then again, I suppose I've done that a lot, just because that's a good time for me to play guitar and work on things. Now, for sure, when I'm a family man, it's easiest in the evening when the kid is sleeping and the wife is maybe doing her things, or maybe she's already sleeping and I have some time to myself. But also when I was younger, I was probably often practicing late in the evening before going to bed. So I don't know how much better that would be than practicing in the morning when your head is clear and you still have all the energy. I think it might be to each their own with that kind of thing. Yeah, so yeah, I knew that most of the Meshuggah albums were recorded to a click, except for the first couple of ones that wasn't. But since like the third album or something, they were recorded to a click, so I just needed to find the BPM, and then I just took an MP3 of the song, imported it into Cubase, which is my DAW of choice, and I just aligned it to the grid so it showed up, with the click. And then I just for each riff I created a MIDI part. I opened up and you have the piano roll, and you can put in your notes as 16th notes or whatever. So I just put in like 16th note dots. If 16th was the subdivision, they have songs where it's like 8 note triplets and so on. But I just put in the subdivision that it was, and then I put a little dot for every note. So born in dissonance, dun, 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 dun. And then I could see a visual representation of each riff like that, and for some riffs, like there's a riff in Born in Dissonance that's like something like that, and I mean, you can, when you listen to it for the first time, you hear that there's like reappearing things, but there was things about it that seemed random to me, and I had difficulties grasping how I would internalize it and think of it. But when I saw that visual representation of it, that helped me a lot. And then there's riffs that I didn't need that to do that for. Like I haven't played these songs in such a long time. What's the name of that song? Doesn't matter right now. Well, a riff like that was easy enough for me I could just jam along right away. And some riffs were tricky to even understand how they were put together, and yeah, the visual representation really helped with that. And yeah, then I just, like the riffs that were difficult, I made a looped version of, and then I could practice to it and practice only those like 16 or 32 bars and have it just repeat. So I could like practice a riff for 15 minutes straight, and that usually was enough, for me to really internalize it and being able to play it later. So, and then there was the song Bleed, which is very technically demanding, that I had to I actually made a couple of versions that were slower than the original version, so I practiced the song a bit slower at first, so because I knew that I needed to practice playing it with as little like effort and energy as possible, but still find a sound that sounds powerful, even though it really is not, because you can't. I mean, sometimes you really want to dig in with the pick and punish the strings, but with a song like that, it's not going to happen unless you are Superman. If Superman played gent. All right. So basically that's what I did, and often the songs I learned the songs at home, so I could rehearse them, and then we rehearsed them like 20 times. We did 20 rehearsals before a tour, something like that. And when the tour started, I thought that I was like nailing everything perfectly, more or less. But then I could tell, like a week or two into a tour, I could start feeling like now I know the songs, when I had played them live a fair amount of times. So yeah, I hope my answers will suffice, Isaac, and good seeing you here, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey Isaac, how's it going, man? Dude, key changes are the best. It's just like, it's like magic, and it's free. And there's just so much emotional impact that you can conjure up just by changing key. And there's a million ways of changing the keys, and you can change key abruptly, like what did you write? Let's see, E minor to G minor. It's like you can go from like a D minor progression and then go directly like something like that, which is gonna be very dramatic. But you can also use like a chord from E minor, like Like if you go to that D, which is a part of E minor, but it also can serve as the dominant chord, the 5 chord, to G minor, which makes it like a little bit smoother. And sometimes you want for things to be dramatic and abrupt, and sometimes you want it to be smooth, right? So I like things like that. There's also a way you can go from E minor to G minor by playing what I refer to as a chromatic chord, from E minor to E flat. They share the same third. The minor third in E is the major third in E flat. This is like a harmonic device that I love, because this E flat major can resolve back to E minor. It's basically, if you remove the third, you have like those notes are just moving chromatically. That's what I'm thinking of it as, a chromatic chord, because it just has a strong pull back. It's almost like a dominant chord, like. But so when you reach the E flat, you could also think of this as being the flat 6 chord in the key of G minor, and you can end up on G minor, and that's just lovely. That's like a modulation device that I used for the sweep arpeggio section of a holographic universe. It's basically A minor, A flat, C minor, B, E flat minor, D, F sharp minor, F, and then back again, rotating through the entire 4 keys. Yeah, tons of things you can do. Some of them it's gonna be more vanilla than others. I made a lesson on my Patreon called Minor Modulations, where I show examples of how to go from like basically from C minor to all the other minors, to D flat minor, E, all of them. Check that out. If you are on my Patreon, that is.
Hey, what's up, Isaac? Yeah, let's talk about 2 major triads spaced a tritone apart. Basically what we have is this sound. In the key of E. I have an E drone in the background here. So if we put these 2 triads together and overlap them over each other so they form a scale, we have a 6-note scale. If we fill in the blanks, so to speak, we get a symmetrical diminished scale. So it's kind of pairing E and B flat major triads kind of gives you a symmetrical diminished kind of sound. Which is cool. That's cool on its own. But you can also use this thing in a more diatonic way, where one of the triads is going to be inside of the thing you're playing. For example, if we think of E minor 7, if we play a G major triad over this E drone, we have everything we need for E minor 7. So if we play this and then we play the triad, a tritone from G, a D flat or C sharp, that's a very unusual sound in this context. But adding that somewhere in your lines can create some really cool tension. So something like that. It's just like something in the middle of whatever you're doing that it's like twisting your ear somehow. Let's do E Mixolydian. We have the D, which is a nice triad. And we alternate between D major triad and A flat major triad. Like that, or something like and it could even be like a scale thing. You play something like play something, then you displace it a tritone away, and then another tritone away, which means you're back where you started, and then you go somewhere else. I just love the sound of that. And it can be other things than tritones. The tritone is basically splitting the octave in the middle, right? It's the middle point between an E and an E is B flat. And you can divide the octave into 3 parts, which means you're getting major thirds. So you play an E, G sharp, C, and back to E. So you can do something like and you can even play like a scale fragment. And move it down or up in major thirds. And yeah, I just kind of enjoy the sound of that. Like that. All right. Thanks for asking. Cheers, man. So Mr. Paul Burgess Police has submitted 3 questions for me, and I will deal with them one at a time. The first one goes, what piece of advice would I give to myself 25 years ago when it comes to your instrument, practice, etc.? So I just turned 52. So 25 years ago, I was 27. You can check my math on that, but it sounds correct enough to me. And at that time, I was still in trouble because I had injured my arms. So I hadn't really played guitar for 4 years or so. Maybe this was like at the time where I started being able to play a little bit again. I had like repetitive strain injuries. So a good chunk of my 20s, I couldn't play the guitar because I was just in pain, and yeah, it was pretty horrific, as you might imagine. And so like practicing wasn't something I was thinking of because my arms hurt. And at the end of this period in my life, when my arms started getting a little bit better and the pain started fading away, I was just lucky to be able to hold the guitar and just play for 5 minutes without my arms killing myself. So I didn't really have a plan for the future. I didn't know that I was going to end up being a like internationally unknown musician with a signature guitar and answering fan questions like this. That was not something I could even imagine happening, because I didn't know if I would be able to play guitar the next week. So it would have probably changed my outlook on life and on the future if I would have been able to sneak a peek into the future and see glimpses of myself releasing albums of my own music, touring the world with Meshuggah, having a signature guitar, and all of these things that I have experienced in the 25 years since. So, and also what with practice, I haven't really practiced all that much since coming back from my injuries, because I just never went back to the kind of practicing that I did as a teenager, when I was practicing all day long, which also was kind of the reason why I got those injuries to begin with. So, on to the next question. The guitar world has changed a lot in the past 20 years. New ways of building guitars, like with the Strandberg guitars, new technology with pickups, plugins, the talent bar being raised by the introduction of YouTube. What do you predict will come in the next decade in terms of developments? I don't think I qualify as some kind of Nostradamus figure, so I don't really know. I can only kind of analyze and look at the differences from my formative years from now, and like what the world was like when in those teen years of mine, when I was practicing all the time, and information wasn't as easy to get a hold of, and when you got a copy of someone's instructional video, those were just like holy grails for everyone, because you could see up close what Paul Gilbert and Marty Friedman and Sean Lane and Alan Holtworth and all these people, you could see what they were doing and have them talk about it, which was amazing. And fast forward to today, and especially the past 15 years or so, when you have everything on YouTube and on Instagram and its close-ups, and unfortunately today we also have a lot of fake playing, or playing that, like the kind of playthrough videos. No one knows if it's fake or if it's just if you want to call it fake or you call it a playthrough video or so. I think that's a different discussion. But so growing up today and striving to be and become a great player, on one hand you have access to all this information, and you also see these incredible players, and possibly for some, when you see all these super perfect performances on Instagram that might or might not be fake, there's both of them, right? And you have that as the standard that you have to aspire to, which I think also makes some people reach that level by just striving for it and practicing. A little bit same thing I feel a little bit with vocalists, that people are so used to the sound of autotune that you hear like the amazing young vocalists that almost sounds like they have built-in autotune, because that's what they have been mimicking when they have developed their voices. So and today also we are like at this threshold to the AI future, which is incredibly strange and a bit exciting as well. And I have no idea where that's gonna end up. So my prediction is useless. But
today it's cool to see like players like Matteo Mancuso, Jack Gardiner, who I'm meeting in a few days. He's playing a show in Helsinki. I'm gonna go there and watch the show and hang out. But you have these young players who are absolutely amazing at what they do, and they have access to all these things I'm talking about, and it's just cool to see what happens when you have someone as like incredibly gifted and talented and super brilliant and smart like Matteo, and what he can do with that in this world today. All right, and the third and final question. Sorry, I'm taking my time with this. So you end up stranded on an island with a beard comb. That's nice. Smorgasbord, and I hope it's an infinite smorgasbord, so I can just go refill my plate and go for seconds all day long. And a CD player. You also had 5 CDs. Please tell us the 5 CDs you have. Well, I hope then that I will have access to power, or at least like a good amount of batteries for that CD player. I don't know, something Alan Holdsworth for sure. I need a metal album, maybe something with Symphony X, the new Mythology suit. That's an amazing album. Could listen to that a lot. Beyond that, I don't know. Something Stevie Wonder greatest hits. I think like greatest hits compilations would be good. Yeah, I don't know. Can I burn my own CDs and make like my own compilations? That would be sick. Then I could have Holdsworth, I could have Steve I could have Symphony X, I could have Meshuggah, could have Metallica, Master of Puppets, Bruce Hornsby, Joe Zawinul, Jacob Collier. Jacob Collier would be like a 1 or 2 CDs compilations with just him. And probably some other things. All right, I hope that answered your questions, Paul, and thank you for submitting them, and I'll talk to you soon, I hope. Cheers. Mr. Burnett, thank you for participating in this. Now I'm gonna do your questions one at a time, so let's start. What is the biggest hurdle that you find in releasing new material, and how did that factor into the release time of the most recent Scar Symmetry release? Yeah, so anytime you release an album, there's many things to consider. These days you have long lead times. Like Nuclear Blast, they wanted to have the album artwork and the master finished like 8 or 9 months before it can be released in the stores, which is a long time. It used to be like 2 or 3 months, but apparently vinyl production is like the the thing that takes time to plan for whatever reason. Yeah, so the album we released before was released in 2014. I wrote Phase 2 in 15, 16 and started recording it. I think we recorded drums in 16. And then I was kind of in a place with the band and my career and my life where I sort of fell out of love with the songs that I've written, and I kind of needed to do something else for a bit. I kind of lost interest in continuing it for a bit. I didn't want to dissolve the band or anything. I was just not feeling like it. And at that time, I got the call first from Nocturnal Rites to join them, which I did. I did an album with them. I toured a bit, and then Meshuggah called me up, and I toured with them for a few years. So during those years, I was kind of
enjoying spending some time in the musical worlds of other people. But then at the end of it, I needed to get back to my own band and my own music, and I sort of came back with new energy, and I was ready to start working on the material again, and just finishing everything that wasn't finished yet. And from there on, there were like other things. There were just like legal things, what with like contract with record labels and management and publishing, things like that can take a lot of time, and it's expensive, and it's kind of sucks a little bit of the energy out of you, but it's super necessary. To be in the business, to have all of that worked out. We had an unfortunate experience with the first artwork designer that we was going to work with, and I think his now it's been a few years, but his mother passed, and a friend of his passed away during this time, and we gave him time to grieve and get back to work. What are you supposed to say? So we kept the door open for him for a long time, but I think at some point we just needed to say, like, we have to move on. I think we waited for like 7 months or so, and then we needed to find someone else, and we found one, and he couldn't do it right away. So that kind of thing kind of stalled the release a bit more. So there's just so many things that can happen, and yeah, and at the time it felt kind of weird, going out publicly and talk about like, yeah, so we're working with this guy, and he's struck with tragedy, and yeah, and I think it hit him really, really hard, because we couldn't get a hold of him, and he didn't reply to emails either. So it was really bad, and I really felt for him, but he could never pull himself back to finishing the thing up. So yeah, so we found Pierre-Alain D, who did the artwork that ended up on the album, and it's great, and I really hope that the other guy is doing well. I haven't really talked to him since, which is a shame, I suppose. All right, live stuff. All right, on to the next question. I too love Strandberg guitars, but have always wanted them to experiment with different body styles beyond the standard shape and telestyles. If you had a blank slate to design any shape of Berg, what style would you go for? V, Iceman, Explorer, something completely new? I've been kind of wondering what a Strandberg V would look like, because when I'm like visualizing it in my head, it seems like it could work, without the headstock. So, but what do I know? I grew up being a fan of V guitars. Remember, Accept had V guitars, and I thought that was super cool. I do think that Ola Strandberg has said, like in clinics and interviews, that there is a Strandberg body type that hasn't been put into production, and I don't know if it's gonna be, and I haven't seen it. It's just like I feel like I've heard rumors about it. So yeah, so now we have the Salen, we had the Bowden, and the Varberg. Makes me think like what could like the next Strandberg model look like if we ever get one. I think that could be exciting. All right, the next one, and last question, I suppose. How do you find ways to continue your skill development and break through plateaus in proficiency? It seems like you always find a way to blow my already blown mind with each new solo. I hear from your projects. First, I'm very sorry to hear about your mind. I certainly didn't intend to blow it. Maybe you should see a doctor for that. Anyway, I don't practice these days like I did when I was in my teens. I talked a lot about me having arm injuries in my 20s, and I couldn't play for 4 years. And then when I started playing again, I was so scared of ending up with injuries again that I just stopped practicing. Obviously, there are times when I have to practice something, like during my years with Meshuggah, I had to practice those songs, especially some of the songs really took some practice. But other than that, these days I just play, and I try to think of things like harmonically that I haven't tried before. I try to take what I have and just rearrange things. When I'm working on improvisation, like there's only for so long you can do the minor pentatonic and develop that. At some point you need to like move out of that comfort zone a bit and go somewhere else. And that's something I've been doing for almost as long as I've been playing guitar. But there's like always new things to find out, and these days maybe it doesn't show too much in my playing, but I'm trying to kind of go in between the scale notes. So if I have something like, so I have a E7 here, and like if I'm playing Mixolydian, I mean, I can play diatonically, but I can also play something like, do things that go out beyond the diatonic scale. Stuff like that, which is things that I'm kind of working on, but I'm doing it in sort of a exploratory, playful manner, instead of like doing actual exercises. I'm just noodling around and trying to find new sounds. So basically that's it. Cheers.